Survivor's ready.
If anybody has a hidden immunity idol and you want to play it, now would be the time to do so.
The queen stays queen.
You said Russell Feathers.
Did you do that?
Yeah.
We have red bananas all the time.
Dude, my prize isn't even $1 million. My prize was that I fell in love in this game. Love at first sight. Her name is Candace.
You officially go down as the dumbest survivor ever.
Welcome to Not Game, All Personal. Hey, we are a Survivor podcast here to talk about all things Survivor, more specifically the events of this past week. I'm Nathan. This is Tony. Tony, how does it feel to be officially merged?
Nathan, are we officially merged? I feel like we have to bring up that question again because they split into two tribes. Is that merged?
According to Jeff, it is, and we're not doing this again because this is what I said last week. You're not baiting me to go on this rant. We are merged. We are merged,
What?
which means we split up, okay? That's what the merge means.
I went home this last weekend and my nephew, I was talking to him and he was like, man, Nathan's so dramatic about the merge thing. I was like, yes, he is. He needs to cool it. He's like, it's not that big of a deal. I was like, I agree.
I went on a small rant last night to the group that we watch with, and same thing. Someone was just like, "So it's just the wording you don't like?" I was like, "Yes." They're like, "Oh, okay."
It's like, well, this was a fun conversation. Let's move on.
It's like, but it has meaning. It has value. If we just
Words
change
matter.
it, yes, they do, Jeff. Okay, but yes, I'm over it. We are officially merged, which means we split up into two tribes, and it was eventful.
Was it?
There were moves that were made. How about that?
Were there?
Okay, I have a feeling we're gonna be on different sides of this fence, and I'm excited.
So I left
have
this episode.
I have a
Nathan.
strong feeling that we're gonna disagree, and as soon as it happened, I was like, "Oh, me and Tony are gonna be disagreeing about this. I can't wait."
It's always a bummer to me when they split into two tribes and both tribes do the easy thing. And not to say that the easy thing is necessarily the wrong thing, but boy did I want them to go to Rocks in the second tribal. Boy did I want to see that fight happen. That would have been so much fun. And yeah, it was disappointing. It was disappointing. I want to see fireworks and we didn't get fireworks, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I can get behind that. I think, honestly, I really do think that, like, when you split off this early on, and one of them said it, but, like, they haven't had a chance to vote all together with everyone on the table yet. You know, like, it is kind of bizarre that this format now waits that long, because I think when you do split up and you have nowhere to hide, you don't really want to make a huge move right here, especially because, like, for example, spoilers again. I don't know why I had to say that, but, like, you know, like the Kelly and Bruce situation where she's like, it's not time yet. You know, I think part of that could be that there's other people on this other tribe that she maybe wants to, like, include them in that. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to make a huge move without informing your allies who aren't on the same tribe with you right now. So, like, I get that. Like, the safe move kind of makes sense. But I do think that format kind of forces them to do that.
Yeah, this season I feel like more so than even the past few seasons where it's done this like merge and then split into tribes type thing. They wait so long. They put off like them making a vote and solidifying alliances so long that it gets so fluid. Like they've been with so many other groups, especially this season where we've done a swap. Two tribes never went to tribal before that swap. So like so many of these people have not shown their loyalty through a vote. I think there is some pretty firm alliances, at least on Reba. But when it comes to Bello, it's just so fluid and you don't know where everyone's going to fall because they all want to work together, except for a couple don't want to work with like that person. And so I do think it's very interesting in that way. But like I said, this episode felt like the easy vote for both sides.
Yeah. I am grateful, though, that, like, this is where a 90-minute episode really helps, because I think previously I've been more frustrated with an episode like this because it's so just rushed, and it's like, I don't know what's happening. Like, I feel like we got a lot of time with everyone where I had a good understanding of where everyone's head was at going into East Tribal. So I do appreciate that part. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to getting a vote with everyone involved. That's going to be really exciting when it finally happens next week.
Yeah, and how things are gonna fall, if sparks are gonna fly or what? Because now Reba's down a member, but they still have Emily, so they can pull her in, and so it's still probably even. Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how
Hmm.
things shake up because then nobody wants Bruce there. It feels like, and then Bruce doesn't want Couture. Yeah, there is some interesting dynamics happening. I think the season has definitely picked up from the slow start we had.
Completely agree. I think the past 3-4 weeks have been phenomenal. I think once we got the quitters out, it's been really good stuff happening. Um, and yeah, so let's get into it. I'm trying to think if there's anything really significant pre them splitting up. I know we kind of got some post tribal talk with Caleb after he got all the votes on him, and then got a
Hmm.
shot in the dark. It's hard to even talk about that because I feel like anything that happened with him post tribal doesn't actually matter because now we know he's gone. So it's
Yeah,
not like it's not like any
I
strategy.
will
Like,
say showing like your social charm immediately after that and doing this long like super eloquent speech and just like solidifying how good you are with like the way that you talk and how like much you put people like at ease. Yeah, that's probably not the move, man. I'd be like, hey guys, it happens. Like that was awesome. Like great moment. I still want I still want to play this game. So I'm glad that I'm still here and I'm still like and call it good. You don't need to talk. You don't need to tell everybody this whole long story.
yeah, I agree with that. It feels like you almost should run and hide and play like a much quieter game, and he didn't really do that. It's not like he
Hmm.
completely messed it up, but yeah, I would almost be so much more humbled. Be like, guys, I got no one. Please, like, don't do this again. That's how I would go about it. But I don't know. I don't think that's why he went home this week either, though. So I think like that's the thing.
Mm-mm.
Is I
It
almost feel
was
like,
just because he was the easy vote,
yeah, pretty much.
ultimately.
Yeah, I do think that he got the most screwed by like this swap. I think like Sifu,
Hmm.
I don't know, he's always kind of gonna be that person that's an easy vote eventually, but like I do think if there were more people that were, I think like, obviously we saw Jake stand up for Caleb and all this, but I think like all the other people that would have, actually gone to rocks for him were on that other side. Uh,
Hmm.
and so like we definitely did see, which is what we predicted, that not everyone was like, we need Caleb out last week. It was really just a few, and then most of them had to go along with the majority, including Kelly and Emily and several others. So I don't know. I think it was just like there's not much he could have done at this point.
I thought it was kind of crazy because I thought Katura and Caleb were pretty close, and so I figured that, and I maybe it was just the fact that she didn't know about Bruce's idol until that moment, and
Hmm.
that's what really put her off to him, which I guess makes sense. But yeah, she like it feels like she's going scorched earth. I could see her joining Reba next week, honestly, or trying to start something different entirely, because she just seems so put off by that, and that's the only way that I can explain her not wanting to fight for that. I guess rocks are
I
intimidating, but
I think that was it, honestly. And that's where I think like the biggest mistake that Caleb and Jake made were telling her about the idol in this way. Because I think it's so much different. Like we saw when Caleb was with all the Bello people before the merge, and he like
mhm,
reached out to Kelly and told her some information. Before, like, they weren't in trouble, they weren't going to tribal. It was like, I'm giving you this information because I want to work with you. Like that's the ideal scenario that you want to get information. I think Katura sniffed out that, like, wait a minute, you are conveniently telling me days after only when you
mhm.
need me. So, like, I think in her perspective, like, she pointed out, like, oh, I am not only am I at the bottom of this alliance, I'm not even in this alliance. Like,
Mhm.
you two don't want to work with me. You just want my vote tonight. And is that true? I don't know. Like, I don't think Caleb didn't want to work with her. I just think, how do you tell the difference? Because you have Bruce who doesn't want to work with her and keep it a secret, and then you also have Caleb keeping a secret. So I think it just kind of connects the dots on its own.
Yeah, and you can't really I mean, you can't blame them for not telling her, I guess. I think the one thing that kind of stood out to me that seemed scummy, and I understand if she feels like put out by those guys and doesn't feel like she can work with them anymore, not telling Jake that she was going to vote that way wasn't in like It was lame. I texted or I messaged coworker Nick immediately, and I was like, "Dude, Katura is so lame. Like, just because she didn't go to Rocks. Like, Rocks is so cool, and I just love every opportunity." So I was like, "She's so lame." First of all, but I understand that was probably the correct choice for her game. Why would you risk it for Caleb at that point? But she didn't tell Jake, which then completely cuts off her ties from that entire alliance. I feel like the Bello people won't trust her at all, and now she's literally alone in the game. So she can go from being the bottom of one alliance to the bottom of the another alliance, which is never like a good idea. I don't know. It just felt like an interesting choice to just not. It felt similar to Sean not telling everybody what he was going to do. It's like you unnecessarily create an enemy, or nah, it's not that similar. It's just similar that a vote happened that because people were just unaware of what was going on. But do you know what I mean?
I know what you're saying, but I do disagree because I think
Tell me
Jake
about it.
is in the same position as Caleb. So it's like I don't think she wants to work with him. I think like both of them are people that kept her out of an alliance, and so why would she want to include Jake on that? I think she's much better off creating a new, relationship. Because I think like it is, you're right in the sense like she could be going the bottom of this alliance to that alliance. But again, I don't think she was the bottom of Bello. I think she wasn't in Bello. So I don't view it as like
Mm,
she was at the bottom. I think she was on the outs the whole time. And we know that, like we saw that they didn't include her in anything. And so I don't know, like for Jake to be like, "Hey, vote with us, Bello Strong." It's like, no, that's not Bello Strong. You lied to her for days. And I
mhm.
think even viewing her working with Reba as being on the bottom, like I don't think we know that she'll be on the bottom because she's never had a chance to work with them. So it's
True.
not like I get that they've been had these relationships for days and days, but to me, I don't know, just because she's new, I think she like proved her loyalty to them. Um and so I don't know. I don't really to me it makes the most sense. I think if she would have went to Rocks and like let's assume that like Julie does go out, I think that would have been horrible for her game because now she's in the game with Caleb and Jake who don't want to work with her or didn't up until this point. They go back with Bruce leading the Bellow Strong. To me it makes sense to get one of those numbers out so you can keep playing the middle.
Yeah, I think I agree that the smart move was not to go to Rocks. I wanted him to go to Rocks because that's fun, but I
Sure,
understand
I
that
get that.
it probably wasn't the best move. The don't understand because by her not telling Jake that she was going to do that, it guarantees that he's like a direct enemy. It's like
But he
she just
already
straight up
was. I think
hung him
that's
out
my
to dry.
point.
I don't. I feel like the illusion could have been kept, and I think we obviously have the behind the scenes look where we know like Kelly wants to work with Katura. I think Kendra, like everybody else in Bello, I feel like is fine with working with her except for Bruce. And so, and obviously she doesn't realize that she thinks everybody's just against her. But from our view, I think that just completely cutting him out and hanging him out to dry was not good because it just it makes her an immediate or it makes him a direct enemy as opposed to like we're not necessarily working together as closely as you think we are kind of situation.
I guess so, but you have to blindside people, I think like if she tells him, I think your assumption is that he doesn't tell Caleb or something, So like I think you you need to keep that information to yourself unless it's like I don't see any benefit in telling Jake. I think it's just more of a risk that it gets back to Caleb.
I don't know. I don't know if getting back to Caleb is an issue. I guess, and like I don't know. I feel like blindsiding people is good, yes, but I feel like you would want to be on more secure ground than I feel like she was. But we'll agree to disagree. We won't just sit on this topic the entire time.
I knew it. I knew it. I was like, Tony's not gonna like this. I know he's not gonna like Katura after this. 100%.
Yeah, and I was never a huge fan of her. I don't
No.
think she's great at the game, but yeah, and I'm starting to like Jake, so she hurt my boy's feelings.
No, I think this is one of the bigger because I think this shifts so much. Because I think like one, everyone wrote down Caleb last week, so by getting
Hmm.
Caleb out, you're not really making any enemies here. Like even Bruce wanted Caleb out, So like
Hmm.
worst case scenario, Jake goes back to Bello being like, oh, Katurah voted Caleb out. And they're like, oh, cool. He's like, no, we didn't want that. They're like, well, you know what I mean? Like, I don't view this as her going against Bello. I think it goes against Jake, which, I don't know. Jake is not a threat to me at all. But I do think, here's my bigger question. And this is something that we've talked about in recent seasons as well. And I think this kind of strategy is really at play here because Jake talked about it with wanting to keep Caleb, as Caleb is like a shield, right? Like he's this big target. Why would I get him out? He's protecting me because people will vote him over me. And Kelly even said the same thing about Bruce. Like no one's going to take Bruce to the end. And I think we've mentioned this in recent years as far as like the strategy of like getting out those middle people so that you can have the big targets, assuring that people take you to the end and not those targets. And I think a big difference is like Katurah doesn't need those targets in the same way that Jake does. Like for Jake, it makes sense to want to keep Caleb, whereas like, oh, here's like a, I don't know, archetype, you know, strong guy or something, someone who could be good at competitions or something. Like whatever Jake is seeing, whatever his logic is, like I don't think Katurah sees that logic. I think Katurah is someone who might slip to the end, so it makes more sense for her to want to keep those people that slip to the end and get rid of the big targets. So I don't know. I kind of like view it in that way too, because I think in recent years we've seen like the old school like goats that you'd want to keep in the game. Those are the people that almost get targeted more so this kind of era of Survivor.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought for sure. Because their games aren't equivalent. A shield for one person isn't necessarily a shield for another person. I think the part of the shield situation is it's just giving you another week of like, oh, they're probably going to go after him, but they're completely different players, so that's not necessarily the case. I guess with her, I don't know. The people in Bello that wanted to work with her were the people that wanted to also work with Caleb, I feel like. And so the people who were actually an opportunity for her to align with were the ones that she went against more than anyone. She actually did Bruce's dirty work by getting rid of Caleb. She did Reba's dirty work by getting rid of Caleb because he was going to align with the people that she ultimately really wanted to be with. I understand when you realize that you've been kept out of a secret for a couple days, like I completely understand all of that. But from our macro point of view of the game, I feel like she made adversaries out of the people who really did want to work with her in some capacity.
I guess, but you just said it yourself. Like she did Bruce's dirty work, right? She did so. Like if everyone voted for Caleb, who's going to be upset with her? Since everyone already voted for him, I think that's my point. It's like no, I don't think people really wanted to work with him that much. I think they viewed him as a shield, but like they're not like let's go to the end.
But yeah, I think creating. Whatever. We don't need to keep digging into it. I was gonna say just create it, like going after somebody in Reba and creating like voting with those two, create something. Like there's some sort of a trust there. But she had already felt like that trust was broken. So she made her decision.
Did you see the preview for next week?
Vaguely. I didn't pay super close attention.
There's a very heavy hint that there's gonna be a all-female alliance forming. So that might sway my decision. And again, we know how those typically go. Not always great. So, but
worked really well once.
I think if it does work, I mean, I don't know. I think that kind of solidifies her. Because again, I'm like, you look at the people, like Kendra, I don't think is going to be upset that Caleb's gone. Kelly, maybe a little, but Kelly's also anti-Bruce. So like, I think when you look at the individual people, I think she still has a place in all that. I don't know. Like, I just don't feel. I think it'd be different. Like, if she turned on Kelly and voted Kelly out, I think then people would be like, "What the heck?" Like, you know. So, I don't know. I'm also just really biased because I have.
That's where the not telling. That's fair. I think that's where the not telling Jake comes into effect. Because if she made this decision, sure, but if she just leaned over at Tribal and said, "I'm voting for Caleb" to Jake, like right before the vote or something, then he knows what's going to happen and he can vote according to that. And then you don't burn that bridge, which he is,
Yeah, but Jake is going to be medically evacuated next week, so he's not even going to be
true.
much
So it won't ultimately matter with him.
Yeah,
that's
like
true.
I think you have to view him as a liability. Do you want someone in your alliance that's just going to pass out all the time? No. The
No,
answer is no.
but it's only twice. All the time isn't twice.
It's only twice.
I feel like that tribe was significantly more interesting than the other one, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, do you
What
want
was
to
it?
talk about the other three that are at play here within that tribe? Because we got D, who wins immunity.
Oh, sure.
Julie, who is potentially the target, and then Austin, who they're all convinced is just weak under pressure, which I kind of love that they're all like that was the conclusion. Like, oh, if we go to if we revote, Austin will fold. There's no way he has it in him. I think I wanted them to test that more than anything, just to see if that was true. That's what I
Yeah.
wanted.
If he folded, awesome. If they went to rocks, awesome. Like, I just wanted to see. I love when people are put under pressure like that, where it's like you have to make this decision now. How loyal are you? Are you willing to risk it for your team?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did find it very interesting that D is sort of this identified threat now. I think a
Mhm.
combination of her winning immunity, and then also Caleb calling her out last week, which apparently did have some ramifications, and so now her threat level is seemingly higher. And so it was fascinating that like Julie was the target for that reason, to like weaken D. So I don't know.
Mhm.
It just felt like it went 0 to 100 real fast because like I think we both are fans of D's game. Like she's doing a good
Mhm.
job, but it was like oh wow, people are like onto her, which is kind of crazy.
I wonder how much of that was the pre-challenge, because Kelly was mentioned as a target pre-challenge, and D was mentioned as a target pre-challenge. And D was like, "Oh, my name was brought up, so I must be a threat now." I wonder how much of that was them prepping for them winning immunity and no longer being options, and then they won it. So then that kind of solidifies, okay, yeah, D is actually a threat. So I wonder how much it was before and after the challenge for sure. But yeah, I think she's seen as just somebody who has had solid allies throughout the game, and not almost no one else can say that. And so that
Yes.
automatically makes you a threat.
Well, and that's the crazy thing because like original Reba, they're voting out their own members, but that core four is still stronger than I think any Bello connection. Like I
Mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm.
can't think of a duo in Bello that is stronger than the four of them together. So like I
No.
think that is a threat worth watching, and I'm a little disappointed that people are onto her because I would like to see if she can run the game to the end, on this pace. But yeah, no, I mean, I thought the plan to go for Julie was a good plan, especially if
Mm-hmm.
you are Jake and Caleb, because again, there's I think they're going for those middle players. Like, let's not worry about Austin right now. Let's keep him in the game as again another target, and let's go for like this person that might switch back and forth and could outplay us in some way.
Tell him he can have a sandwich if he gets voted out. Then he'll just be like, you know what, I'll leave.
They did talk about that a little bit, didn't they? About the amulet with him and Kelly, and I think he was kind of
Yeah, that
like not
that might have
really
been the biggest
concerned,
reason. Mm-hmm.
or like I don't know. It was interesting. I was like, okay, I'm glad that he brought that up because it's one of those things I feel like we haven't seen really play out or talked about, especially like Jay going home. That wasn't seemingly a deciding factor. Um, so I don't know. I'm glad that it's on his mind. He's at least processing what you can do with that power.
Well, Jay was a backup ultimately, but yeah, I see what you mean. Um, yeah, that's the only thing that makes me nervous because I really enjoy Kelly and I enjoy watching her play and seeing her win like an immunity. It's like, oh, okay, she's not just this strategic, like this social person that we enjoy. Like, oh no, she's here to play. She knows what she's doing a little bit. Um, a part of me was sitting there when it was D and Kelly. I was like, one of you drop. Like, don't raise your threat level too much because I like both of them a lot. Also, just shout out. I love that challenge. I love the just like hang on a pole. I feel like we haven't seen that in a while, and it was exciting to see again.
Yeah, again with my watch party, a lot of them are newer, as in like 41 plus, and a season here or there in the
Mhm.
past. But they were like, "Oh, I've never seen this challenge." I was like, "What? Like, is that true? Like, is that true that we haven't
This
had
is
that?"
a
And then of
staple
course,
of Survivor.
there was a tease of next. I think it's next week. The Survivor auction's coming back, and that was another one
Yeah.
where I had to explain how that works because it's been so long.
Mm-hmm. I think another one that I'd love to see come back is where you have to hold your hand up, and if you like drop it too low, the water dumps on you.
Yeah,
I've always enjoyed that one too.
I like seeing people get wet.
Yep, that's what I meant by that. Anyways.
Let's talk about this other tribe, which is
Yep.
not nearly as interesting. And I don't even think I have any strong takes really on it. But it was made up of Sifu, Bruce, Rue, Emily, Kelly, and Dre.
Mm-hmm.
So we had 3 original Bello, 2 Reba, and then Emily there again. And really, this one was pretty much between Bruce and Sifu. Again, sure there were other names brought up, but like that was the dilemma that the producers let us kind of weigh out going to the tribal council. And
Mhm.
ultimately, they vote out Sifu. Again, easy vote.
Yeah.
Not wanting to go for Bruce, and no one voted for Bruce other than Sifu. So everyone somehow got on the same page. Yeah, I mean, are you surprised by this? Do you think that someone should have done something or try to go for Bruce at this point?
Kendra was the one that really seemed like she was pushing for Bruce. I think you keep him. Well, I don't know, because that alliance seems so dysfunctional when Bruce is around, because none of them want to play with Bruce. That's just like what they need to do to further themselves in the game. But even when Kelly was like, "Hey Bruce, maybe don't do this. Maybe don't ask questions in front of 15 people. Like maybe that's not a good." And then he just like completely defends it and argues with her. She's
Mm-hmm.
like, "Whatever. Sure. Yeah, you're fine. Do your thing." Like they don't want to play with him.
No.
And so keeping him around feels like a necessity, but there's a part of me that's like maybe you should have gotten him out of there just for that sake. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it really depends who you are, because I think like for Kelly's sake, she said in one of the confessionals, she's like, yes, I can't work with him, but like he trusts me, and he's
Yeah.
not. So I think like for her, like it does make sense at least for now. Obviously if you're like Katura or even Kendra at this point, like I don't think he likes Kendra very much, and he's suspicious about everyone. Let's be honest. But like
Except Kelly for some reason.
I think she's just that good. I don't know.
Yeah, honestly.
I mean, let's be honest. If you saw Kendra's eyes staring at you, you'd probably be a little suspicious as well.
And they're terrifying.
Yeah. So I think like for Kendra, it makes sense because it's like this guy doesn't really trust me that much, like, and he's kind of out there. But for Kelly, he's like, yeah, he's out there, but he does trust me, so I don't want to do it yet. So I think once we get enough people that are on the same tribe or same tribal council, I think we could see him out in the next week or two. I just think with this small tribe, it just wasn't gonna happen. And again, I think it's one of those things like if Kelly's gonna do it, she should probably include other people and not just do it like without them. That's my thinking. I could be wrong about that though.
I do think these tribes split incredibly. Being 3-3 for like the Bello side and the Reba side, and both tribes, both Emily and Caleb were on separate tribes, and so they
Right.
were like with the side that they're probably closer to. Like that was a super cool development, and I think it raised a lot of opportunity for people making some risky plays, and just nobody did, which probably, like I said, was the correct move. You don't. It's honestly too early to make a massive move because then you become a massive target. But I want to see it, man. I just want to see it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it was fascinating too, just seeing like Drew kind of come into it. He's like, "Look, I don't care. Like, I'll cut Sifu. Like, whatever." And it's just.
He just like rolled over. Like there wasn't even a part of him that considered fighting anything.
It
And I was
is.
kind of surprised.
It's shocking how over Drew I am. Because I feel like the first 2 episodes or so were like, ooh, this guy's got some interesting, like, wow, he could
Mhm.
be. But like, everything he does almost just like annoys me at this point. Because, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
watching this. I'm like, you're not even playing. You're just like, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to do. Which, again, is a strategy, I suppose. But you're not even going to try to come up. Like, it feels like he's just coasting at this point. Like, what was the last thing he did that was like significant or interesting or like socially aware even? I don't know. He's just bizarre, and I have such little hope for him moving forward.
And to be fair, he was in a tribe with or group that was like his three closest allies were all on the other side, and so he was completely alone. And so
Mm-hmm.
yes, you just kind of roll over and hope that it's not you. But man, he didn't even try to fight anything. He was like, "Nope, this is it."
Yep, exactly. And even because, like, I don't know, I feel like him and Emily could have something. Because the thing is, like, they had the votes, you know? Because, like, Emily wanted Bruce out, Kendra wanted Bruce out. I think it really just came down to, like, Kelly talking some sense into Kendra, you know, and
Hmm.
somehow getting through. So that's the interesting thing. Is like I think you could have made it work. Like if you actually wanted Bruce out, I think you could have talked enough people to get that 4-2 vote. But it just apparently no one was passionate enough to make that play. Which again,
Hmm.
probably we're saying the same thing. Don't want to take that risky of a move, split up like this.
Yeah, I was gonna mention Kelly talking to Kendra, and she kind of talked her down and was like, "We need to like not do this right now." But I feel like we've been talking up Kelly so much that I'm nervous she's gonna get voted out soon. So I was like, "I'll take it easy." And then you
That's
said it.
usually how it
Um,
goes with us.
yeah, I think realistically, if somebody talked to Kendra near tribal and was like, "Now might be your only chance to take care of Bruce." Like we don't know what happened with the other tribe yet, kind of thing. And but nobody went for it. And that would have been really funny to see Bruce go before jury.
It would have been, yes. Uh, that would have been really funny actually.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's I don't know. The more I like look at the numbers laid out right now, I think if the females can get on the same page, I think it could work. Cause you think about it, like a lot of them do have that similar like gameplay or at least target. You know, I think like you look at Kendra and Katura and Emily, even like they're all like, let's go for Bruce, right? Like they're over
Hmm.
him. You got Dee and Julie who are like wanting to actively go for these threats like Caleb. And so like it could really pan out that way if they get on the same page. Because like none of the issues are between any of the girls. Like that's the crazy thing. Is like any sort of rift that we have is usually like between the guys right now.
Yeah, that's very true. I think the issue will be Dee and Julie. I think Dee and Julie would rather work with Austin and Drew than an all girls alliance.
I could
So I
see
think
that.
ultimately it'll boil down to do they go that direction with all the girls or do they not? Because or do they
Mm-hmm.
stick with the two boys? Because there's how many girls are in the game? How many people
There's
are in the
one,
game?
two, three, four, five, 6 girls left and 4 guys.
Okay. Yeah, and so ditching them at this point, I don't know. It'll be interesting. I think it'll be something that's floated. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if the first time they're actually going to do something, it just flops, or maybe they get Bruce out and then it kind of spreads out from there. Because that even puts the Reba four in an even better spot.
I could really see that. Like I could see Bruce going next week or the week after, and after that, a major reshuffle. Honestly,
Mm-hmm.
because I think once you get him out, like, what is your common ground? Like, do you all have the same similar goal? And I mean, 6 people is a lot for an alliance at this point in the game too. So I'm assuming like there will be a bottom of that alliance, and if that bottom recognizes it, do they reach out to the other people that aren't it? You know, so like
Mm-hmm.
it could be fun. Obviously, it won't ride out to the end, but I'd be down to see that happen.
I have a question for you, Nathan. Looking at
Okay.
these final 10, how many can you look at right now and think you could see them winning this season, or you'd be like happy with them winning this season at where we're currently at? Obviously, anything could happen in this end game and make us love somebody or hate somebody. But who do you
I
realistically look
okay.
at and think
I
I'd be happy with, or I can see?
I feel like those are 2 different questions because there's some people I could see
They
winning,
are,
but I'm
as I
not
was.
happy about it. So which one do you
But
want?
would you be happy? Would you be happy in that like they were a deserving winner? Like they deserve to win. Let's do it in that they would be a deserving winner.
I think there might only be one person. Is that true? That I think wouldn't be like deserve. Maybe two. Two that I would feel like, oh, they could have done more.
Okay, who are those?
I think Kendra and Jake. Those are the two where at this moment I don't see anything in their game that make me be like they deserve to beat these other people. Everyone else
Okay.
I could make an argument for.
I could see that.
That's a
don't
lot
know.
though to say like 8 people I would be okay with. But I honestly like
Yeah.
there's no issue I would have with anyone else.
I feel like so. I think I disagree on Austin. For me, just feels like I haven't seen any real strategy from him. I don't think. I feel, or maybe I just in my head, it's always been Drew that's brought up the strategy, but I don't know that I would trust Austin that much.
I
So
think
I don't know
I've
if I'd love him.
turned. I think me walking it back on Drew has shifted all to Austin, and I think to me I see Drew as like I'll just say I think Drew's gonna go 100% before Austin. I think Austin is
Yeah.
much better socially with people. And I mean, like, he's got a bunch of advantages, which, again, like, is that a fun way to play the game? Not necessarily, but, like, you get to the end, he gives out his resume of, I found this, I got that, you know? Like, it's something.
I don't know if I see Drew winning the game either. I think you're right. I think Austin I would see having a better chance. I can't imagine Drew sitting in those final 3 seats
I would have to
and
have
having
Drew
a
as,
good
like,
argument.
I would have him as number 7 on this ranking if I had to.
Yeah.
Like, on the, yes, I agree with that. He's tough.
Emily has a great story and I could see her doing some cool stuff at the end.
Yep, I like Emily. Obviously, Dee and Kelly, I think we're both fans of.
Mhm.
Even
I
like,
don't love Julie.
okay, so I think Julie could be a sleeper. And again, this is I feel like I'm contradicting myself because I'm saying on this moment. But to me, I think like her social game is pretty good, and like I think if she can get to the end and really hone that, like I had this alliance, I stuck with it, blah 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 blah. I think there's something there. I agree. I might need to see something a little more, but I think just the way she's positioned now, I could see her going far.
Okay. Couture is another one that I have a hard time seeing.
Now she's my number 2, I think.
Really?
I think the story's there, and now I think the move is there. So
I think the story's there.
I think she's on pace to like getting that resume up. You just don't like her. It's fine.
That's a move. You think
I
that's
do.
a move? It's a move. It's a move. You think that's a move though?
Yes, getting out one of the biggest threats, being that swing vote, and if she's able to build on that.
That brings up exactly what I want, where I wanted to go next. If we're good on that conversation.
That's fine. Yes.
All right. So obviously, Nathan, we do a podcast talking about Big Brother and Survivor, right?
Hmm?
Is Caleb a social Cameron? Where he's incredible socially, like Cameron was incredible this season. Cameron was incredible physically,
what a
but to the
weird
point
question.
where he is not
Okay.
able. Is he not able to manage his threat level at all? And so, like, you know, like we talked about Cameron not being that great of a player because he's incapable of like.
I would
lowering
say
that threat
he
level.
is a bad
I would
player.
put Caleb.
Yes.
I would put Caleb in that same category. Yep, that's essentially what I was asking. I was just going
Uh-huh.
all around with that.
Okay, so like the comparison is that like Cameron won so many competitions, and if he could
Mhm.
just do the smallest social thing, he would be better, or possibly still in the game. Caleb, incredibly social player, but if he could do one thing else, I don't know, because here's the thing: is like I don't know. Is Caleb a good social player?
What you said, I disagree with. So, I think so. Cameron is a phenomenal challenge person, but the problem is he did so much of it that his threat level had raised so much that now he was the big target because he was so good at competitions. So if he had lost a few, then he would have been in a better position, I think. And that's where I'm kind of at. And maybe that's not a perfect comparison to Cameron, but with Caleb, he was talking to too many people, having too many conversations. He was too like likable and charming, and like if he could have reined that in and maybe just like still been himself and still been friendly, but you gotta know that you're making yourself a massive social threat, and people are gonna be nervous about that from pretty early, from like the first 2 votes.
Yeah.
We got rid of. He's a massive threat. Like that should be a smack in the face, and then you realize I need to tone this down, but he just couldn't. He constantly was just talking to everybody. and like couldn't get out of his own way almost. And that's how I feel about Cameron in some ways.
Yeah, I guess because okay, here's the interesting thing. Like with Cameron, if he could have kept it up, the comp wins, it would have been good.
Mm.
If Caleb keeps up the social game, it's impossible. So I think that's the thing. Is like I'm questioning, is Caleb as good of a player as we thought he was? Because we're saying he's so good socially that it got him in trouble. Then maybe he wasn't good socially. You know, that's where I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would, because he's in the grand scheme of human beings, he's a very strong social person. As a person, he's very social. He's very likable. He's very
Uh-huh.
like easy to talk to, easy to be comfortable around. But is he is he bad socially because he's too good
Okay.
socially? Is that kind of what you're saying?
I view a social gameplay different as being like a sociable person. I think you
Okay.
can, because to me, a social gameplay is like it's all about reading people. It's responding the way that you need to for them to like trust you. It's all these things, and I think what we've seen is he didn't really do that well.
Okay.
I think like you look at the pre-swap, he had some moves there. It was mainly working with Emily, who was like at the bottom and was probably getting voted out, right? Like that was kind of
Mhm.
the biggest thing that he pulled into there. But then post swap, he never went to tribal with them. And so I think like we saw like, wow, he's building connections with Bello. But turns out he never had them because the first time he goes to tribal, none of them were with him. You know what I mean? So I think that's what I'm questioning. Is like, how did I view that as a social game? Because clearly none of it led to anything.
I think I've always viewed social game not exclusively as this, but like how likable you are by your tribe mates, how entertaining you are to be around, and how like the kind of some of the stuff you said, I would say almost more strategic. Like when talking game, how do you respond? Maybe there's just a disconnect in like those understandings, and maybe I need to change my understanding.
I think I'm just
But
wondering, like, if he is a likable person, but they still vote him out, how do you, explain that?
but he's too likable.
That's yes,
Like
sure.
he's likable to the point that he like that. That's genuinely what I think it is. I think
But then I don't
he
think that's
makes
a good
people.
social gameplay.
That's a good point. Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
Okay. This is fascinating.
And that's what I'm
I
saying
really
is
like this thought.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying is like he was very strong socially, but he wasn't able to like temper that. He wasn't able to be careful, make sure that he wasn't being seen talking to everybody and making friends with everybody and being like super close to because that's what made Bruce nervous is he's talking to everybody and he's flying all over the place, checking in with everybody. And that's what made Bruce turn on him is he was too sociable to everybody. And so if he tones that down, he's still a sociable person, he's still a friendly person, but toning that down like I would say Cameron toning down the competition wins. Cameron is an interesting case because I think he would have gotten voted out if he toned down his competition wins, to be fair. But yeah, I just saw that comparison where I think a lot of normies will watch this season and be like, Caleb is the best player in the game. Why did he get voted out so early? He's so great at Survivor.
Yeah.
We want to see him come back. And I don't know that he is that great of a player because he isn't able to manage that threat.
Yeah,
of his
no,
social game.
I completely agree. I just think it's hard to know how to define that because it could be he's a very good social player, but the strategy wasn't there, maybe, and maybe that's what I don't know. Because I think like in the real world, he's probably great socially, right? Like I think like that's it. But like in the game of Survivor, that doesn't always help you get far. I think of this is probably a bad example, but I think of Tony, who his second time he played, not you,
I know.
the winner of Survivor. You are not a winner of a Survivor like game. Okay, that is a fact.
You didn't have to you didn't have to say that. That was just rude.
But like the second time he played, he was horrible. Right, just went way too hard. Blah 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 blah. Winners at War, he completely learns when to turn it on, when to turn it off, and I think to me that is such an important skill. Is like even if you're good at something, it's important to know when you need to put that on. And I think Caleb, like, he could be very good socially, but have a bad social game because he doesn't know when to turn it off. And I think that was the issue.
Hmm. I think that's the hard part is having the different verbiage because
Yes, it
I would
is.
say he's good socially but playing a bad social game. Like there's those they're so similar. I would almost wonder if kind of how I view the game is similar to like how I don't know if this is like actual the definition, but like knowledge and wisdom. Like knowledge is something you can have, you know a lot of things, but wisdom is how you apply that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's the actual definition, but it's almost like social game is like how likable you are, how friendly you are, but strategy is how you apply that. I think that's kind of how I view it.
Sure, because I even think, like, having the most social game isn't always a benefit. Like, sometimes it's good to not have a relationship with everyone. You know?
Hmm.
Like, I would argue there's sometimes
Absolutely.
where having a known enemy is beneficial. Like, there's some, you know what I mean? So I think, like, that was his thing. It was like, he played the game where I want everyone to be working with me. And we know that
Hmm.
never works. So yeah, I agree. Like I think in hindsight, it's going to be fascinating to try to describe his game because up until this point, I think we all viewed him as like, wow, he's making moves, but turns out it led to absolutely nothing. So,
Hmm.
were those moves? That's the question.
And if he did that at like final six, just went off and started making all these moves, that's a winning game. But doing it right before you get voted out as the first jury member, not a winning game.
And I think that's my thing, like, because to bring back to Cameron and Big Brother, I think like my point with him has always been he won competitions and that was it. The second he was
Hmm.
eligible to be voted out, he got voted out.
Hmm.
Same thing with Caleb. The past few weeks, he's been safe because he hasn't gone to tribal. Like again, week 2, 3, he got obviously he was safe those first few weeks, but like once he started becoming social, he never went to tribal. The first time he goes to tribal, votes. The second time he goes to tribal, votes. So it's like
Yeah.
clear that yeah. So that's I think that there's a good comparison with them there too.
I feel like there was like a 5 minute period there where you and I said social or socially or social game, like 50% of the words that were said.
Oh, that was your question, so I don't know what you want me to say.
I know, I know. It was just, I wonder if it's going to be challenging to follow.
I probably. I feel like we just go on these tangents that I don't know if anyone thinks that way that we do.
Yeah, but that's my favorite part. We get so in depth with it that other people
You
might not even think that way.
no, you'll never hear a podcast that talks about it, whatever. Anything else about this episode or any other players you want to discuss?
I don't believe so. They got some DIY tacos.
Yeah, and sausage, tacos and sausage, as Jeff said.
Oh, weird.
Yeah,
Sausage is
it
weird.
was odd wording, like tacos and sausage. Like what?
Ooh, I don't like that one bit.
All right. For more episodes, visit notgameallpersonnel.com, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Really follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube at NGAP Pod. That is at NGAP Pod. I'm Nathan. This is Tony, and we will see you next week.
45 seasons, 2 pals, 1 podcast.